let's come back to our motivation and really thinking in the long term that being able to benefit all other living beings by leading them in the Dharma is the best way to benefit them and the best way to make our own life meaningful and the best way to have happiness ourselves. That we may hold on to anger, we may hold on to craving and jealousy and arrogance and think I'm right and insist on being right, but none of that makes us happy and none of that creates the karma for good rebirth, liberation, or awakening. So if we can really focus our mind on what's important, then all these other things that seem so enormous but are actually just trivial pricks to our ego, our self-centered thought, then all those things just, we stop giving them so much attention because we see that they really don't lead us anywhere where we want to go. And in fact, they lead us where we don't want to go. So they say that full awakening is fulfilling the purpose of ourselves and the purpose of others. So the purpose of ourselves, attaining omniscient mind and the nature body of a Buddha, and fulfilling the purposes of others, being able to have the two form bodies of a Buddha. So holding that as our ultimate aim, then let's have that bodhicitta motivation and keep our mind focused on what's important and see what we're doing now and learning about debating as one step in learning wisdom and also in creating merit. Okay, so it's been a few weeks since I've done this class because there were a lot of other things that came up on Thursdays, so I wasn't able to be here. And in the meantime, some people had sent me some questions, which I had put on a sheet of paper that now has disappeared and gone to the Pure Land without leaving any bones or hair behind. So, any of you who wrote me questions before, please write them again because they got lost. I do have one question from somebody that was received today, so that one I have. So this person was asking about exercise 4.4, where we were comparing the color of cloth and what is not blue. Okay, so what are those? Okay, there's something that's both of them. Yes, what? That's not, it will compare, oh, okay. So the color, well, just blue. But we're comparing the color of cloth and what is not blue. It just says the color of cloth. Your robe is cloth. What is something that is the color of cloth and it's not blue? How about red? Yeah, you don't need to specify red of this color cloth or that color cloth, because red is a color of cloth and it's something that's not blue. Okay, so you don't need to say the color of my, well, you could say the color of my red robe if you want to, because that's a color, but you don't have to. You could just say red. What does it say?
Previous chapter, under the advice at the end of the chapter, it talks about being precise. I think it's under that section about being precise. And it says it's, or specific or something. And it says it's really good to take a specific thing.
Yeah, but ask yourself, is red the color of a cloth,
I'm not saying that won't work, but I'm saying that let me get out the quote.
Yeah, they say it's good to be specific, so that's why I said you could say the color of my red cloth, because that's the color of cloth and it's something that's not blue. But you could also just say plain old red. Okay. Okay, let's go on while you're looking for that. Okay, what is the color of cloth? But it's not what is not blue. Blue. Okay, blue is the color of cloth, and blue is what is not blue, meaning it's blue. Okay? So what is not the color of cloth and is what is not blue? Something that's not the color of cloth and it's not blue. Okay, so you could say the color of red cloth if you want to. You could also say a car or a table or, an elephant or something like that. Because it's something that's not the color of blue. Not the color of cloth. So you can't say there for not the color of cloth, you can't list a color. Yeah, so it has to be something that's not a color. So you could say a piece of cloth. Because a piece of cloth is not the color of cloth. Okay? And it's also what is not blue. So there's lots of things that are not the color of cloth and what is not blue.
Would the color of a red car be something which is not the color of cloth and
the color of a red car?
It's not the color of a cloth, right?
Yeah, well, it is the color of a cloth.
Could be, but
yeah, it is. Because the color of a red car is red, and red is the color of a cloth.
One of the reasons this was confusing is that in one of the previous examples, when we were looking at the possibilities between blue and color of cloth, something that was on page 52, something that is a color of cloth but is not blue, like the color of a white shirt. So there, because it seems that he was suggesting that we're not just talking about a color, but we're actually talking about the color of a white shirt. So he didn't just say white. And this was confusing.
Yeah, but
we
you
weren't
could
sure if we had to include that it is a cloth and a color of a cloth.
You could
not just a color.
You could say this is the same thing she was saying. Mm-hmm. So you could say the color of a white cloth, or you could just say white. I think either one of them work, because they come to the same point, don't they? Isn't white the color of a white cloth?
The thing is here's where we get tied up, is when they give their suggestions at the end.
Uh-huh.
So I agree with you there, but let me get to the page. There are two suggestions here. I'm on page first 67, number 5 at the bottom. There's two suggestions here that sometimes I think have entered into this discussion. And it says, when you give an example of something, be precise. Do not say that a blue car is something that is blue, but not the color of a cloth.
Do not say,
That a blue car,
yeah, that's correct.
right, and with this one we're familiar with. That is not at all clear. It's just the color of a blue car that is blue, but not the color of cloth. A blue car is a
Is a
big
car.
chunk of metal,
Yeah.
glass, plastic, da 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 da. Okay, so you may continue to wonder whether or not a blue car is blue, but who could question whether or not the color of a blue car is blue? That would be ridiculous. So I
Right.
think we understand that, but we still
Yeah.
get tied up with it. And then the next one is develop the habit of giving very specific subjects. This is somewhat different from being precise. What I mean is give a subject such as the color of my father's old blue car, or the color of my blue t-shirt. The reason for this is that it will be easier in the long run to give reasons that justify your assertions. For instance, why is the color of a blue t-shirt a color of a cloth? Why? Because of being the color of a blue t-shirt. This habit will prove to be helpful down the road, round the way.
Yeah.
So I agree with you, but these points get us kind of tied up.
Yeah. Okay, so both those answers could be correct. Yeah, the color of a white cloth or white. The color of blue t-shirt or blue. Both of them work. Yeah, a blue t-shirt doesn't work.
The chart on page 52 gives an example of the color of a ruby not being the color of cloth or being blue.
But a ruby's red.
I know, and this confused me very strongly.
Okay, wait, I don't have a book with the page numbers. Okay, so you said where? Bottom page 52.
There's one error in that chart we know of.
Yeah. Yeah, the second one is wrong.
If you look at the paragraph below the chart, it seems to confirm
Okay,
that
the chart shows that the color of, what are we comparing? The color of blue and, what's the comparison of
blue and
the
colors of cloth.
Okay. So that the color of blue, of a blue cotton shirt is both blue and the color of a cloth. Fine. That the color of the blue sky is blue, but it's not the color of a cloth. Okay, so that second chart, where the second check should be an X instead of a check. Okay. That the color of a white shirt is the color of cloth, but it is not blue. We got that. And that the color of a ruby is neither blue nor the color of a cloth. I see what you mean. Okay, so it's a little bit ambiguous. I tend to go on the side of the colors, you know? Okay. But so he's saying that the color of a ruby is neither blue, okay, nor the color of a cloth. I would just,
That looks like a mistake as well.
yeah,
I'd say ruby is.
He's also saying that the color of a blue sky is not the color of cloth, even though you could have a t-shirt that's sky
Yeah.
blue.
no, he's saying, what? Okay, I'm reading the paragraph. The chart shows that the color of blue cotton shirt is both blue and a color of cloth. You could also say, I think blue is the color of, you could just say blue without saying the color of a blue shirt. He made it more specific by saying the color of a blue shirt, okay, is blue and the color of cloth. But I think you could just say blue because it seems to fit both things. But in any case, the example he gave is correct. I think you could say it either way. So that has 2 checks. Then the other one, that the color of a blue sky is blue, but not the color of a cloth. Okay, I would disagree with that, because I think the color of a blue sky is blue, and I think blue is the color of a blue cloth. So then, if that example that he gives, okay, the color of a blue sky is blue, but not the color of a cloth. So if you say that that is correct, yeah. So, okay, I think the point is that we've all seen that there's different ways that you could talk about the color of a cloth. Yeah? So maybe when you're debating this, you need to specify, are you always going to list the color of a such and such cloth, or are you going to be satisfied talking about just what the color is? You can't say blue sky, because a blue sky isn't a color, but you can say the color of a blue sky. But here he's saying the color of, that the color of a white shirt is a color of cloth, but is not blue. Okay. Yeah. That the color of a blue sky is blue. That's correct. But it's not the color of a cloth. I would disagree. I would say it is the color of a cloth. Yeah, but I could also understand somebody saying it's not the color of a cloth because they want to put colors of cloth every time they say something. Yeah, but I don't think that's necessary personally. Okay, and that the color of a ruby is neither blue, okay, it's not blue, nor the color of a cloth. I would say it could be the color of a cloth. Yeah, because red is the color of a cloth, and it is something that's, not blue. Okay? Yeah, so just, I think we all got the point, right? Uh-huh. So we can disagree, can't we?
This is under 4 possibilities, and if we were saying that blue is always going to be included in colors of cloth, then it would be 3 possibilities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it would change it. So maybe that's something you would probably have to debate on the debate ground. Yeah. So we could debate that right now, and debate it that, do you have to say the color of a cloth, or can you just say the color? Yeah. Anyway, do you want to debate that? We've talked about it so far, we couldn't reach a conclusion. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Okay. So, shall we start on the next chapter, chapter 5, where it talks about 2 kinds of statements? Now, here I should give a little bit of an introduction in that, he's talking about statements of qualities and statements of privation. The reason he's doing this is because in the following chapter, I think it is, or soon, he's going to go into how to make a syllogism. And when you make a syllogism, okay, so the table is empty because of being a dependent arising, okay, then there's 3 things that you have to check. one is, and the first one, there's many names for it. People call it by different things. I say the reason applies to the subject. He says the reason is the property of the subject. You said it establishes the subject. Is the reason established. So there's different ways of saying it, but it's just different words, okay? So I'm using does the reason apply to the subject? So in asking that question, you're saying, yeah, because our syllogism was the table is empty because of being a dependent arising, then what you're looking at is the subject and the reason. So you're looking at table and dependent arising and asking yourself, is dependent arising a quality of table? Okay, so that would be a statement of quality. That's why he's going into all this, the statement of quality. The second thing you need to check in a syllogism is called the privation. And that is when you look at the reason and you say, if it is the reason, is it also the predicate? So in this, if it is dependent arising, is it necessarily empty? Okay? Then they also say the third one is the counter-privation. But actually, if you have the privation, there's no need to do the counter-privation because there's no way you could have a privation but not a counter-privation. Because the counter-privation is saying, if it's not empty, then it's not a dependent arising. And that means the same thing as if it's a dependent arising, it's necessarily empty. So if you draw the circles, draw your circles of dependent arising and empty, and then, see how if it's a dependent arising, it's necessarily empty. But look at your two circles and see that if it's not empty, then it's also necessarily not a dependent arising. And you'll see that that holds true, that once you have the privation, the counter-privation is also, that's okay. Yeah?
Is it true for everything or only for dependent arising and emptiness?
As far as I know, it's worked for every syllogism I've known.
So,
Because you have to draw the circles, okay? Because if you have circles of privation, either the two circles overlap, and they're equivalent things. In the case of being empty and dependent arising, they're mutually inclusive. Or the one that is the subject is a small circle within the big circle that is the reason. No, the reason is the thing at the last. In this one, it would be dependent arising. So you would have a small circle that is the table. That is in this one, the two circles are the same: dependent arising and empty. If you had another word, empty. What's another one?
maybe an integer, meaning it's a number.
Pardon me?
Comparing an integer with a number, a general number, for example. Could you do that, or?
But let's think of a whole syllogism.
Okay.
The table is selfless because of being impermanent. Okay? So in that one, table is your small circle. Well, first of all, is impermanent the quality of a table? Yes. Then looking at the privation, if it's necessarily impermanent, this circle, is it necessarily selfless? Because there's nothing that is not impermanent. Yeah, anyway, everything that's impermanent is going to be selfless. So you have one circle inside a bigger circle. Now, in just looking at that, that also tells you that everything that is not the big circle is definitely not going to be the small circle. Okay, so that's your counter pervasion. Everything that is not selfless is not impermanent. Okay? Yeah. So it's helpful to draw the circles so then you can see how things stand. Yeah. Okay, so that's the reason why he's going into statements of quality, which is the first one, applying the reason to the subject, and statements of pervasion by seeing that if it's the reason, is it necessarily the subject, is necessarily the predicate. Okay, so that because he's going in that direction, then that's why this chapter is taught the way it is. You know, if you don't know that, then you're saying, why is he teaching this? This is so confusing. Okay. Okay, so let's read this chapter. The Buddhist reasoning and debate are directed towards the goal of understanding the nature of things in the world. They depend on words. One may think internally in a rational way while considering the different sides of a question, and that internal investigation may or may not be dependent on words. For example, if you're in deep states of meditation, you may not be using words. But if you wish to argue and state an argument to another in speech or in writing, you will have to depend on words and statements. Okay? So here he's saying that, you know, words and concepts and statements are important to learning. Yeah, that we can't just, you know, if you say everything is, even just saying everything is empty, you're using words, aren't you? But you have to understand what emptiness means. Okay. In Buddhist reasoning and debate, the elements of an argument consist of two types of statements. One, a statement of qualities, and two, statements of pervasions. These are not the argument forms themselves, so they are not the syllogisms, but they are the elements of the syllogism, which can work together to make an effective argument. The best approach to building up any new skill is to take it a little bit at a time, step by step, so it will be easier to understand the argument forms once you are familiar with how these two types of statements are understood in this system. So, you know, before you can understand a syllogism, understand these two states of kinds of statements, and that'll make your life easier. Buddhist debate is practiced in Tibet. As practiced in Tibet, is hardly ordinary speech. That is for sure. Okay? It is a kind of jargon for those who are trained in it, like computer speak or medicalese. Lati Rinpoche told a joke along these lines. I like this joke. In old Tibet, each year at the time of Losar, the Tibetan New Year, which falls somewhere between January 15th and March 15th, dependent on the year, there would be the annual gathering called the Molam Chemmo, the great prayer festival in the capital of Lhasa. Now they have the Molams sometime they have them in several places because, it's dispersed. Often Bodh Gaya, also Dharamsala. Part of the festivities included in the final examination debates for the monks from different examination. Include, yeah, okay. This is why we proofread books. Include the final examination debates for the monks from different monasteries. Many thousands would gather, and wherever the monks would gather in great numbers, there would be prayers, rituals, and debates. two monks sat in a tea stall debating, and they were using a golden pot as the subject of their debate. The owner was disturbed to hear the monks arguing, because, like I was telling you before, they argue, and they shout and they scream at each other, and, like that. Not always, but they can. The next year, during the Mulam Chenmo, the very same thing happened in the same place. The two monks sat together in the tea stall, arguing about a golden pot. This time the owner decided to speak up and said, "Last year you two were here arguing over this golden pot. And here you are again this year still arguing over this golden pot. Monks should not be so greedy." Yeah, I think that's great. I will give you each a golden pot if you will just stop arguing. So, little kids, I'll give you both a piece of chocolate. Just shut up. The poor fellow just did not understand them. If he had been able to understand their words, he would have known that they were not arguing over a golden pot, but were arguing about the nature of a pot. Doubtless, neither of them ever owned a gold pot. Okay. So even though formal debate is not ordinary speech, I should add something here. I had one of my American friends was in Sunny Lapdra for many years, studying debate. He was a layperson. And he did well and he loved it, but he got into a relationship with a woman, and he said he realized that he was turning all their discussions into debates, and debating her with everything. And so the relationship was not going very well. So he had to, ease up on his debating skills. Okay, so even though formal debate is not ordinary speech, the predominant need for analytical thinking is for ordinary encounters in the world. So that's, one of the benefits is it helps you learn to think clearly, but, please be polite to your friends and, don't be picky about every small detail because it's not going to go over well. Thus, part of the job here in developing this style of analytical thinking is to be able to apply it to ordinary speech. This begins with spotting the many ways that the two main kinds of statements are expressed in ordinary English and understanding what that person means to say. So this is nice because he's trying to translate debate talk into ordinary English. I think in Tibetan they don't try, I don't know that they sit down and try so much about that because the lay people basically, when the monks are debating, they can't understand very much. Yeah, you have to really study it to understand. So here I will display a few specimens. I do not think that these lists of the two types are complete, though they do pretty much cover it. Keep in mind that sometimes you may need to ask people exactly what they mean by what they are saying, as we just noticed earlier in the class. That is, you may have to ask them if they intend to say such and so, something you can understand clearly. Often I wonder if what the person's saying is intended to be a statement of equality or a statement of privation. This is usually easy enough to sort out with a question. Okay, so statements of qualities. P is Q. Yeah, example, a chair is an impermanent phenomena. Okay, the Statue of Liberty is something that was produced from causes and conditions. Professor Purdue is an American. So, you have the subject to your sentence, and then whatever comes after is, yeah, and whatever comes after is a quality of the subject of your sentence. So not only P is a Q, but P is Q. So when you say P is a Q, then the Q is usually a noun. And when you say P is Q, then the Q is going to be an adjective. Okay, so the color of a blue shirt is blue. The color of my car is white. This coffee is bitter. Okay? In statements of qualities, there is a subject, a linking verb, or a copula? Copula? I've never heard that word before. Anybody know it? But it means a linking verb. Yeah. Okay, a linking verb and a predicate. These sorts of statements may be represented as above, with the star representing the subject, and it is inside the world of P phenomena, which is in the circle, meaning that the star has the quality of a P. Okay, you clear on that? The statement says that the predicate is a quality of the subject, or at least that the predicate is something that can be ascribed to the subject. The predicate may be a predicate nominative, a noun, or a predicate adjective, an adjective. The form P is a Q looks more like a predicate nominative, and the form P is Q looks more like a predicate adjective. Either way is fine. Okay? A predicate nominative just means that the predicate following the linking verb is a noun. For example, an impermanent phenomena or something that was produced from causes and conditions. A predicate adjective means that the predicate is not a noun but an adjective. For example, white in white car. Okay, so the statement, the color of my car is white, white is a predicate adjective. In the statement, in the same way, bitter is used as an adjective describing a quality of this coffee. In this coffee is bitter. Even when the predicate is an adjective, it means essentially the same thing as the predicate nominative. That is, the sentence, this coffee is bitter, has the sense of this coffee is a bitter thing, implying that among bitter things, this coffee is one of them. Okay, so give some examples of predicate nominatives. Is that a predicate nominative or a predicate adjective?
Today is a sunny day.
Today is a sunny day is a predicate nominative. Today is sunny is an adjective. Okay, give another example of a predicate nominative. The horse is a mammal. Okay, what are some other ones? Say one about mudita. Yeah, mudita is a cat. Now say one about mudita that's a predicate adjective. Mudita is gray. Is what? Is moody. Mudita is moody. Okay. Huh?
Unpredictable.
Unpredictable. Mudita is unpredictable. Just be nice. Well, yeah. It's true. It's true. Mudita is unpredictable. Yeah. So are you. So am I. Aren't we? Aren't we all unpredictable? Okay. Okay. So that's not a put down. Okay. Actually, if you're totally predictable, then things are really stiff, aren't they? Yeah. Okay. Whoops. The thing I don't like about this is it skips pages. Okay. So you got the predicate nominative, predicate adjective? Okay. Our usual impulse is to take such a statement as the equivalent of a pervasion or a universal statement, such as taking a chair is an impermanent phenomena to mean that each and every chair is an impermanent phenomena. And in English, we would probably take it that way very easily, wouldn't we? If somebody said a chair is an impermanent phenomena, it's very easy to think, yeah, all chairs are. Okay? But what he's going to say here is that's not how they take it in this debating system, that it applies to all the chairs when you say a chair. Okay? Because he's going to say, if you want to say something that applies to all chairs, then you would just say chairs are impermanent phenomena. You wouldn't say a chair is an impermanent phenomena. Okay? So even though in English, you know, would you necessarily see those two statements different? You may not. I know when I'm writing, you know, I'll give you an example of this. I was working on the concentration chapter, and sometimes, because I don't want to always use he or she because it takes up too much words, and say he, you know, I'm talking about the meditator, some kind of abstract meditator. So instead of saying he or she should sit on the cushion with his or her hands in the correct position, because it's just, you know, a lot of words, I'll say meditators, you know, should sit on the cushion with their hands in the correct position. Yeah. So I could write it either way. You would understand it either way, you know. But you can also see that there's a difference. If I say meditators sit this way, I'm saying meditators, you know, sit this way. If I say a meditator sits this way, it's kind of abstract. I'm not referring to such and so who's a specific meditator. Yeah. So that's why they call it an abstract singular, because it's singular. I'm just using meditator. But it's abstract because I'm not talking about, you know, Joe who's a meditator or Sally who's a meditator, or, you know, I'm just saying a meditator will sit like this. Okay? So that part I found confusing when he was explaining it a little bit. But if you look at how you can write sentences in English and, you know, and see, you know, meditators sit like this versus a meditator sits like this. Yeah, it has a slightly different flavor. Yeah. Okay. So, so our tendency is to say, like, a chair is an impermanent phenomena, to mean that each and every chair is an impermanent phenomena. Though that is certainly true, or else chairs would not fall apart. That is not how the statement of equality is understood in Buddhist reasoning and debate. Okay? So when we want to say that each and every chair is an impermanent phenomena, we say chairs are impermanent phenomena. Yeah? Or the usual expression of a pervasion, whatever is a chair is necessarily an impermanent phenomenon. That's how you state pervasions. You know, whatever is X is necessarily Y. Or if it's X, it's necessarily Y. Okay, I don't know. He's using P's and Q's. I'm using X's and Y's. Yeah. Or A's and B's. Okay, both of these are universal statements. Chairs are impermanent phenomena, or whatever is a chair is necessarily an impermanent phenomena. Both of these are universal statements with regard to all chairs, because they're applying to all chairs. All right. Of course, we would not, are you with me so far? Okay. Of course, we would not tend to think that a statement such as the Statue of Liberty is something that was produced but from causes and conditions. It would apply to a group of things because the statue is unique. Yeah. So for this sort of statement, whether it refers to the Statue of Liberty in and of itself, or to each and every statue of liberty, is indistinguishable because there's only one. Okay? Someone might take the statement, such as Professor Perdue is an American, to mean that each and every Professor Purdue is an American. Now, chances are, if you were one of his students, would you take it to mean that way? No. But you could see how other people could take it to mean that way. Okay? But clearly, that goes too far. There must be at least one Professor Purdue who is British or French or Canadian or something other than American. However, I would say that reading this sentence as applying to each and every Professor Purdue is not the meaning of this sentence in ordinary English. Okay? Still, many times people will surf on that way of reading such sentences to try to refute the other person's sensible statements. So beware. It is not necessary to tack the sentence down so that the subject could refer only to one person by listing the full name, the date and place of birth, the parents' names, and so on. It is a concrete example on which Professor Purdue is being referred to may be easily understood by the context. Now, I was just thinking, here's somewhere where we might make a mistake, okay? So we might say, well, I'm just thinking out loud here, yeah? A person put the spatula in the wrong place, okay? Yeah, one of those really important things. A person put the statue in the wrong...
Not the statue.
Yeah, well, they put the statue with the spatula, or the spatula over the statue. Okay, the spatula. So somebody says, a person put the spatula in the wrong place. So this is assuming there's a right and a wrong place. We're not going to get into that right now, okay? Because that's a whole other debate. Yeah, but we'll just assume that that's okay. Now, when they say a person put the spatula in... Well, you know what I mean. Okay. Yeah. So the person put the spatula in the wrong place, okay? A person put the spatula. Now, if you're listening to that, yeah, and you think they're talking about me, are you hearing that sentence correctly? No, because they're talking about an abstract singular person. It does not refer to you or me or mudita. Okay, and mudita is a person because cats are persons. Okay, they are not human beings, but they are considered persons. Okay, so is a grasshopper. Okay, so that's interesting, isn't it? How somebody makes an abstract statement and then our mind takes it personally. Okay, so that's a very good example of how we're misunderstanding what somebody says. Yeah, because they're just saying someone put the spatula in the wrong place. They're not pointing at you and saying, you did that. And even if they did, so what? Yeah, I mean, it's really not the end of the universe. Yeah, near, close, but not the actual end. Okay, so it's an interesting thing how we can misunderstand what is an abstract thing and take it personally. Mm-hmm. Now, when we're reading in the book, a meditator sits like this. Yeah, it's an abstract meditator. We don't know who it is. Now, we could say, okay, an abstract meditator sits like that. I want to be a meditator. I'll sit like that also. and then take that as a personal instruction. Yeah, there's no problem doing that, but you're understanding that the author is not saying, pointing their finger at you, they're just speaking in general. Okay? How are these simple sentences supposed to be understood in this system of Buddhist reasoning and debate? The subject portion of such a sentence may be a concrete singular term or an abstract singular term. The subject is singular because it refers to just one thing, even when there are many examples of that thing. In the case of Professor Perdue as an American, the subject is something concrete, a thing you can point out in the world. Him, that one who taught at whatever college he taught at. Very often in ordinary discourse and in debate, we make statements about concrete singular things in the world. I like this chair. Yeah, not a chair. I like this chair. This chair is heavy, and so on. What good would debate be if we could not speak of these things around us? In a case such as a chair is an impermanent phenomena, when we are not talking about a chair in the room, the subject is abstract. Yeah, a chair is a phenomena, an impermanent phenomena. Okay, we're not talking about any specific chair. Okay, speaking in the abstract, a chair in this sentence does not refer to any particular chair or to each and every chair. Okay, like a person put the spatula in the wrong place, it's not referring to a specific person, and it's also not referring to every person in the world. Okay? It is true that each and every chair is an impermanent phenomenon, but that is not the intent of the statement in Buddhist reasoning and debate. Neither does it refer to the collection of all chairs as a gross gathering of all chairs in existence, as if we were to pile them all together. Okay, so a chair is an impermanent phenomena. When we think that, we're not thinking like, somebody put all the chairs together and we're talking about all of them. That's not the image you have in your mind, is it? It's just a chair is an impermanent phenomenon. Okay? Also here, a chair does not refer to the idea of a chair, for an idea is a mental abstraction, and you cannot sit on a mental abstraction. Okay? So it's not the idea of a chair, because you can't sit on an idea. And a chair here is not some ideal chair, like a Platonic form of the perfect chair. Rather, in this sentence, a chair refers to a chair as such, the abstract singular chair, chair in and of itself, chair in isolation from all that is different from chair in either name or meaning. This use of a chair is an abstract singular term, is comparable to the use of the phrase the triangle in the sentence. The triangle is the principal figure in Euclidean geometry. I haven't said that word since high school. Okay? Yeah, so it has nothing to do with Plato and all of that stuff. It's just talking about, a chair, a triangle, not a specific one, not all of them, not the idea of one. Okay? Something abstract. Okay, so here the triangle serves as an abstract singular term referring to the triangle as such, not to each and every triangle. Usually, when the subject is singular, either a concrete singular or an abstract singular, so it could be one or the other. You're talking about a specific person, Joe, or an abstract singular, a person. The grammatical predicate says something about the subject as a collective whole, considered alone, in its own specific nature and apart from the many things that exemplify it. Okay? So this is called collective predication. So there's a lot of, abstractions here in this sentence. So it's not that weird of a reading, really. Imagine if someone came into your home, put his hand on the back of a chair, and with a smile said, "This is a nice chair." You would not respond, "What part of the chair do you mean is nice?" Okay? She means the chair as a collective entity, the chair as a whole. It is the same for abstract singulars. Okay? So if we go back and what he said before. Okay? Usually when the subject is singular, either a concrete singular or an abstract singular, the grammatical predicate says something about the subject as a collective whole. We're talking about the whole chair. Okay? Or, the Trump administration is berserky. We're just, we're not talking about which part of the Trump administration is berserky. Okay? It's just a general statement. Yeah, you want to think of some other general ones with a thing? Okay, think of what's some that is a concrete singular with a collective predication. So it's something that is referring to a singular, something specific, and you're referring to all of it, not just part of it. What's an example? Okay, Earth is a planet. Okay, so when we say Earth is a planet, nobody's going to say what part of Earth is a planet. Earth in what position around the sun. We're just talking abstract. Okay, what's an example of an abstract phenomena with a collective predication?
Water is precious.
Yeah, water is precious. So just talking water in general, yeah, is precious.
A Prius is a hybrid car.
Yeah, a Prius is a hybrid car. Which one would that be? Would that be the
An abstract.
yeah, that would be an abstract singular, not a specific one.
We said our green Prius in the parking lot.
That would be a specific one, right? Okay. Yeah. So you can see the difference between our Prius in the parking lot and a Prius.
So these subjects, I guess especially, both subjects, abstract and this concrete, it reminds me of the self that we impute on objects. I mean, it's sort of like, especially like a chair, it's something we put together in our mind, but I mean, if you went to go look for that chair, you couldn't find it.
Yeah. But here we're just talking on a conventional level. We're not examining what the chair actually is. Yeah. So that's why it's just a, what did he call it? A collective predication. Yeah. Could you imagine every time somebody made a statement about a specific, an object or even an abstract object, every time you made a statement, somebody said, well, what exactly do you mean? Which, yeah. You say a chair is for sitting on, and someone says, which part of the chair is for sitting on? Yeah. What do you mean the chair is for sitting on? What is sitting on? And, you'd go kind of nutty. So we have to have, just conventional language here. I am providing this information on how to understand statements of qualities in this system of debate, even before introducing the argument forms, mainly because they must be understood in a way that is different from the way they are understood in ordinary English. And at the same time, he's telling us we should try and say things in ordinary English and see how they correspond to debate language. Thus, it is a sort of warning to the students in this course and an important early lesson. However, even with the lesson given early and upfront, sometimes the lesson alone is not enough, and we have to express the sentence in a way that is at odds with ordinary English. For instance, even though everything that exists is exactly identical with itself, not everything is an exemplifier of itself. Okay? So not everything is an example of itself. So here's one example. Is the empty set, sometimes called the null set, is it an empty set or is it not an empty set? Is it an empty set, or are there sets that are empty sets and thus are members of the empty set? So the empty set itself is not an empty set. Okay? You getting what it's asking? Is the empty set, so we have this abstraction of an empty set. So an empty set is something that has no members. Okay? So when we say empty set, are we talking about a set that has no members? Or when we say empty set, can empty set also be like a generality that refers to many other empty sets that are actually members of this big empty set? Okay? So it's a little bit ambiguous there. Is it because if you're just talking about the empty set, we usually say, it doesn't have any members. Fine. But the empty set that has examples of, other empty sets, like what's another empty set? Something that is both permanent and impermanent. What's the set of something that's both impermanent and impermanent? It's an empty set, isn't it? So is that set of things that are both permanent and impermanent, it's a member of empty sets. So then empty set is not an empty set because it has a member, which is another empty set. Okay? So then the empty set itself is not an empty set. In Buddhist debate, okay, so you see the quandary here about empty set. In Buddhist debate, and they always use this one, a good example of a phenomena that does not exemplify itself is definition, which is not a definition, not an exemplifier of itself. Okay, so why? He explains this later, but I think it's good to understand that now. Okay, so we talk about definiendums, which are the name that is given to an object, and the definition, which is the actual object, which is like a description of the qualities of the object. Okay, so when we say pot, flat bottom, bulbous bellied water holder. Okay, you have to learn to say that really quickly. I haven't mastered it yet. Okay, but flat bottom, bulbous bellied water holder is the definition of a pot. Okay, the definiendum is pot. Okay? Yeah? Okay. Now, is definition a definition? because a definition is a description of the actual object. It's the actual object, but it's a description, describing the qualities of that object. Yeah. So definition itself as an abstract thing is actually a definiendum. It's a word that has a description that's going to tell you what the actual object is. So you can't say a definition is a definition. Okay? So the way you get around that, so in order to mark clearly that it does not exemplify itself, we have to express this oddly as definition is not a definition. The odd part is that it is not expressed with an article before it, the subject as it would normally be in English. A definition is not a definition. So when you leave the article out, what you're doing is you're indicating that, that this thing is not exemplifying itself. Okay, so this way, where did it go? This way of trying to express the fact that definition does not exemplify itself is more than curious, because a definition would have to be a definition. If something qualifies as a subject in this sentence as a definition, then it would have to be a definition. Okay, let's read that again. So saying definition is not a definition is different than saying a definition is not a definition. Okay, because a definition, everything is identical to itself, so a definition is a definition. Yeah. But definition, as an abstract thing, is actually a definiendum. It's not a definition. It's the object that's going to be defined. Got it? No. Okay. So the definition is the actual object, and it's usually a string of words describing the qualities of an object. Okay, that's what a definition is. And every object is we usually say is itself. So a bell is a bell. A thermos is a thermos. A definition is a definition. Yeah? Just meaning that that object is itself. But if you look at it another way, you say a definition, definition is a definition. Well, definition is the singular term that is the name given to the, this whole descriptive thing that is telling you the characteristics of the actual object. So definition, the word definition, is not itself a definition. The word definition is a definiendum, because it's the word that they're going to define for you and give you the definition of definition. Okay? Okay. If something qualifies as a subject in this sentence as a definition, then it would have to be a definition. Thus, sometimes just knowing how statements of qualities must be understood in this system of debate is not enough. We have to go against ordinary English to avoid saying something that is senseless. The only oddity is in dropping the articles a, an, and the from the subject. They may be used in the predicates of such statements without affecting the required way of reading the statements. There will be more explanation of why definition is not a definition a little later. Okay. Is definiendum a definiendum? Yes. Okay, because it's the one word that refers, is the label of the object, and it's going to have a definition. So definiendum is a definiendum, but definition as a word is a definiendum. It's not a definition itself. Yeah, I forget what the definition. Definition is something triple qualified something. Okay, yeah.
Would it be correct to talk about the word definition? Is not a definition?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's an easier, it's a clearer way to say it. The word definition is not a definition. Yeah, that's the meaning. But there's probably some reason why you can't say the word definition is not a definition. But that's the meaning.
I wonder if it would be helpful just to use something that might be a little clearer, like person is a definiendum, where a being that is imputed independence upon 4 or 5 aggregates is the definition.
Right.
Just to see a little bit clearer than using these words that sound similar.
Yeah. That's why I said pot and flat bottom bubble spaced water holder. Yeah. So you can see that that's how definiendum and definition usually go together. Okay. Since the predicate of a statement of a quality always says something about the subject as a collective whole, so not a part of it, the subject is singular, and the predicate says something about that singular subject. So a chair is an impermanent phenomena. Okay, means that chair or a chair, understood as an abstract singular entity, chair in and of itself, is an impermanent phenomena, one among many. As opposed to collective predication, with distributive predication, the grammatical predicate is applied to the subject distributively. That is, the predicate says something about the subject distributively about each and every occurrence of the subject. We sometimes read a statement of a quality in English as involving distributive predication, but that is not the intent of a statement of a quality in this system of reasoning. Okay? Indeed, sometimes in English, even when the subject is grammatically singular, we can easily see that the intent is distributive. For instance, a man is a mysterious thing. So here, distributive means that mysterious thing is actually, the subject is a man, which is singular, but it's actually referring to all men. Okay? He tries to get around this. This is a poetic expression that clearly means that each and every man is a mysterious thing. It is singular, but the flourish sets it apart, and we understand it applies to all of us, women and children as well, presumably. I would not presume that. If I heard a man is a mysterious thing, if a woman said that, you're just talking about men. Maybe if a man said that, they would be including things. What do you think, Jay? Yeah, it's talking more about men. Yeah, but it could be written in the 1800s. Yeah, it would, but not now. Not now. Yeah, not a singular abstract. Yeah, all the women would say, yeah, it's referring to these guys we can't understand, and then, and then the guys would say, women are mysterious things. But there it's using plural. a woman is a mysterious thing. I guess they could say. Anyway, okay. When we want to be clear that we mean to use distributive predication, we tend to state the subject in the plural, like men are mysterious or chairs are impermanent. Okay, so you see that's just much clearer. Yeah, because there it's very clear in debate language that you're referring to all chairs or to all men. Okay. However, such statements have to be understood not as statements of qualities, but as statements of pervasions, for that is their intent. They intend to say something about each and every man and each and every chair. So that makes it a statement of a pervasion, because it's in fact saying, if it's a man, it's mysterious, or if it's a chair, it's necessarily impermanent. That's the meaning. Yeah, so those are more, whenever it's distributive, a distributive predication, it sounds like that then it's going to be a statement of pervasion, not a statement of qualities. Of course, this gets really confusing. Where are we? Do you want to let's just do this one. Okay, of course, sometimes the subject may be pairs or groups of things, but even then, as the statement is understood in Buddhist reasoning and debate, okay, the subjects are abstract singulars, even though they're a pair. It's an abstract singular, a collective group, and the predicate is not to be understood as distributive. For example, you can say, a chair and a table are material phenomena, or even a chair and a table are a material phenomena. And a chair and a table are impermanent phenomena, or a chair and a table are an impermanent phenomena. Now, why would you say a chair and a table are an impermanent phenomena when there's two things in the subject? Yeah, phenomenon. Yeah. So why would you say that? It's because chair and table are forming a group. They're seen as one thing, not a chair and a table, okay, but chair and table. A set or a pair, okay? Since both of these things are true, you can say a chair and a table are material phenomena and impermanent phenomena. Okay. However, as the sentence is read in this system of thought, it is not suitable to say a table and a chair are a table and a chair. Okay. Now, we just went through, like a cloth is a cloth and a cat is a cat. And here, a table and a chair it should be a table and a chair, but they're telling us it's not. Why not? Because a table and a chair is referring to this set, this collective thing of table and chair. Okay? So this collective thing of table and chair, is it a table? No. Is it a chair? No. Okay. Is it a table and a chair? No. Why not? Yeah. It's a set because exactly, you can't find anything that is a table and a chair. Okay, so table and chair is actually an empty set. Something that is a table and a chair is an empty set. There's nothing that is both a table and a chair. Is there? What's both a table and a chair? Yeah, okay. 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 Well, let's pretend that we don't sit on our desks, okay? Oh. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah, the things that were a table, yeah. One unit, right. No, I thought he was meaning that, you sit on your desk so it serves as a chair. Yeah. Uh-huh.
So the subject can be a collective, but then
The subject can be collective, but the predicate can be two separate things.
and the predicate can't be looked at as a collective, or this would work.
No. Well, let's read it here, okay? Oop, it just. Okay. Okay, so you can't say a table and a chair are a table and a chair. This is because a table and a chair taken together, that collection, are not a table, and also a table and a chair taken together, that thing, are not a chair. Why not? Because the subject must stand together as one collective whole. So it's actually seen as like one object. In a statement of equality, yeah, and you can't say a table and a chair are a table and a chair, because even whether you see a table and chair in the predicate as singular or as a whole object, it doesn't work either way. Because it's not a table, it's not a chair, and it's not a table and a chair because there's nothing that is both a table and a chair. Not even a table and chair are both a table and a chair.
Couldn't you say a table and chair?
Yeah.
And then it would be the same.
No. No, it's a collection.
Well, you put an A in front of the chair.
A table and a chair. Yeah, it's still,
Two objects in the set, whereas a table and chair are.
yeah. I don't think it matters whether you put an A in it. I don't think so. Huh? He has the A, right? Yeah. Okay. So maybe we should stop there? While we're still sane, okay?